Welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we'll search for the XSS vulnerabilities on this live website. So this is the website that I'm going to crack. So let me just go to the options first and make sure that your manual proxy is checked over here. After that, we are good to go. So first of all, I'll just say new scan, and if you just copy this link and let me just go here and paste over here. So this is the way. So in the previous versions of the burp suite, there used to be something called the spider, but now it is just auditing and crawling the web page. So it is pretty much easy in the newer versions. So now in the target, you could see bunch of a URL over here already been crawled. So let me just make this bigger, and you could see we have here the contents. So if you see here, we have the host, which was basically your target, and the method is get or a post. So get is basically getting the URL, post is anything you post to the server. So next one, the URL, and the parameters. So parameters are useful because we want to search for any of the XSS attack if there is no parameter. So we have to search for the parameter. We have to just make them sorted in the form of parameters, and we'll just hunt for the XSS. And the next one is the status code, which means if there is a way or basically to search for the XSS. So 200 is a valid code. And the length. So length is very important. So anything that is bigger of the length, so from the first 10 link can be used to search or hunt for the XSS. So make sure you just sort this length also in the descending order, and after that you have this, what is the type and the title, comments, and the time it has requested. So what this burp does is, burp is actually a man in the middle framework. So what that means is, it will just send the request and basically it will send the response. It will just fetch the request of the client and basically get all the content from the server in the form of man in the middle. That means all the request and response will go through this burp from client to the server and back from server to the client. So that means this burp is a man in the middle, and it will check for every method over here. It will just inject some of its own parameters, or basically some of its own information to the parameter, and it will search if it can be vulnerable or not. So you can see we have the post method right over here. Let's see, and let's send this to the repeater. So let's go to the repeater, and you could see we have this parameter here. So these are the parameters. So you can see page over here, screen info, Java enabled, keywords. So these are your parameters. So let's see if this keyword is vulnerable or not. So let me just pass here 7878, and let's press this go button over here. And if I just pass here the something like 7878, then you could see it has been reflected over here in the value field. That means this is the vulnerable field, or the keyword can have the vulnerabilities. Let's go for another proxy, or let me go to the target again, and let's see for the another post, send this to the repeater again. Let's go to the repeater, and it has first name and the email and everything. So let's go for first the first name. So I'll just say Udemy is my first name. Let me press go, and let's see if this Udemy is reflected or not. So Udemy is not reflected because it is showing no matches or 0 matches. That means this first name field is not vulnerable. So let's check for the email too. So I'll just say test. I'll just press go again, and now I'll just say test. It is also not vulnerable. So let's go now for the last name. I think this last name is also not vulnerable. So let's check this one. So I'll say something like Sachin, and let's press go. Let's see if this one is vulnerable or not. So let's see Sachin, and it is also not vulnerable because it is not reflecting back. That means any parameter in this URL is not vulnerable. So let's go back and make sure that intercept is off over here. In the target, we'll just search for another over here, that is this post again. Send this to the repeater, and we already know that this keyboard is basically reflecting. So if I just press here something like Udemy, and if I just press go, you will say Udemy will be reflected in this value field. So let's make the payload so as to run this field. So I'll just copy everything that is over here. So I'll just copy, let me just copy everything or every field where this value has been reflected. So it has been reflected in this value attribute of the input tag. So I'll just copy everything from there. Let me just paste it over here. So our Udemy was reflected in the value field. So our payload, so I'll make simple payload over here first. So our payload will be simple script, and let me just remove this type, and it will simply say alert, and it will simply get 1. So this will be our payload, simple payload. But you could see we have to first close this value field because it is reflected over here, and we don't want our script to be executed inside this input tag. So first of all, we have to close this value field. So one double quote will just close this value field. That means this value will be empty now. And after that we have to close this input tag also. So I'll just close this input tag. Now we can execute this payload. So let me just copy this, go over here in the Udemy, let me just paste it here, and if I just press go again, and let's see the response in the browser. So I'll just click on this show response in browser. Let me copy this link, go to the browser, and I'll just say paste and go. Then it is showing 1. That means it is vulnerable. So this link was vulnerable over here. So we got successfully cracked the XSS vulnerabilities on this page from this keyword. So let's go for another target and let's see if we get any GET request. So let me just sort this out in the length first. So let me just sort this out real quick. So if you just double click, then it will get the link having the highest length at the top. So I'll just say send this to repeater again, and now it's time to search for the another pages here. So let me say search, or let me just give it unique name. So let me say 9090. Let me press go, and let's see if this 9090 is reflected. It is not reflected. That means this link or this page field is not vulnerable. So now let's go again to the target, and you couldn't see that we have bunch of URL. You can test it out. But now let's make use of this same post method, because we know that it has the basically it was not vulnerable, the another post method was vulnerable, so it is right here. So let me send this again to the repeater, and you could see this keywords was the way, or basically it was reflected. That means I'll send this to the intruder. I'll go here, and in the intruder you could see the positions. I'll just first clear because I want to see that the payload will be executed inside this keyword only, because this other field are useless and they don't have any XSS vulnerabilities. Only this keyword field or keyword parameters has the XSS vulnerability. So I'll just select all of this field. Let me just add, because I want to inject the payload over here. So I'll just simply select the add from this right hand panel, and I'll just go to the payload and go here and load my payload. So if you just remember, we had something like xss.txt, which was the bunch of a payload, and it has a bunch of a payload. You can also download it from the resource section, and if you want to just download it from online, you can simply go to and search for payload list, xss list or something like that. So payload list, and it is not giving anything, so xss. So you can get this link and you will have everything. That is the list of text file here. So let me just open it. So it has everything that you need. So it is a bunch of a payload over here. So you could see every payload that existed or that can just attack any of the parameter is over here. So you make sure you just download this or copy in the text file and load it here. After that, we'll simply start the attack, because other parameter over here as optional. So let's search, or basically wait for a moment, because it is just going for 109, which is the payload count over here. So wait for a moment, it will take a certain time. Now finally it is showing finished. So you could see the payload 0 was empty. That means it has also injected the empty payload and it got the length of this much. So any other payload should have length that is greater than this. So let me just make a double click on that to just see which has the highest length. So obviously this bunch of payload has the highest length, and we'll just search for any other payload. So let's search for this as VG and let's see if this works or not. So I'll just see response to the browser. So instead of that, you have to go over here. You can also simply load any other payload like we just did in the online over here. So you can search for any other payload, you can inject over here. So you could see this payload was working. So if I just insert some payload like this, and this was the payload that we just run a couple of minutes ago. So this can be also injected, and you can also add from here. It will be injected in here at the end, and you can simply start the attack again and wait for a moment. It will just start the attack and you will just get every result of the attack. And let's make sure that length is sorted out in the descending order, and after that you can simply see the response in the browser. And just to make sure you see, just click that and see response in the browser, copy that link and paste in the browser to see the response. So this will be wrap for this lecture. See you in the next one.